lives one day at a time. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. They're here to get your day going fine. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. And here's your host, Miss Kim Robinson.
Oh, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Hope everybody's had a good week. Thank you, Sister Kim. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in again tonight with Relentless Pursuit with Minister Sedric. This has been a wonderful week, and kind of been sitting back this week, just reading through a few emails. Had a chance to get out today and do a little bit of community service. It was awesome. Volunteer work sometimes is just awesome. You just get to meet some really nice people. So I wanted to just thank God for giving me an opportunity to be out and be about amongst the people. It was absolutely wonderful. I have to admit it wasn't something that I personally arranged, but, man, the participation was great. So I've been having a really good month, actually. I know we're only a few days into it, but it's been a wonderful month. And I want to welcome any of my friends who are on tonight. I had some wonderful interactions this week. You know, some with good news, some with bad news, but nonetheless, it's just wonderful. And again, I just thank God for this platform, you know, because Relentless Pursuit, I had an opportunity today to talk to someone about, you know, what basically drives me forward. What is it? What is that little voice inside of me that says, keep going, you can do it, or you can do a little more? And so I thank God for this platform, and I'm hoping and I'm praying and I'm doing my part to grow this platform. I think Sister Kim has done a wonderful, wonderful work with Elation Radio. I mean, it's so much fun. So in this time, this season of thanks and well-doing and well-wishes, you know, I want to thank God for a wonderful sister like that. She's just awesome, and I want to keep her lifted up and keep her doing things. And it kind of lines up in what we talk about here. You know, I kind of got into a discussion today, and in that discussion, we talked about taking care of business, and it was awesome, a very good discussion. And so today, Chris, are you on with me tonight? I have my partner in crime on, Chris. He's out of Dallas, and I just wanted to welcome him in tonight. Are you on tonight, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Hey, what's going on, man? How was your day?
My day was great, man. Worked some long hours all week, but to the weekend, and I'm feeling all right.
Feeling all right? Well, that's good. That's good. It feels good when you're taking care of business, don't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, I always joke around, but I said ain't nothing like a man who take care of business. You know, I meet a lot of young ladies who they want to be married, they wishing they was married, or you know, or they don't have what they think they have, kind of thing. And I said, ain't nothing better than a man taking care of his business. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing good and you're taking care of business, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Again, thank you for tuning in to Relentless Pursuit here on Elation Radio. Tonight, I wanted to kind of jump back into a couple of scriptures. Since my question before, the question I received was about taking care of business. And I wanted to guide us tonight, if we could. Chris, I wanted to kind of just talk about, I want to break open Matthew, and I believe where I wanted to come from is Matthew chapter 25. And I wanted to talk about just putting it in perspective, man. You know, it's one thing to just read the word and memorize the words. And yeah, you know, you say, well, I know a whole bunch of scriptures. That's great. But it's no good if you can't interpret the word. You know, and I remember being a kid, and I could read the Bible all day. I just really didn't understand it. So in taking care of business, my thought is that that God has a special plan for us, right? And the reason I chose Matthew 25, because when you get down into the verses 14, 15, you know, it's just, you know, I realize that there is a message. And if you're not fully familiar with Matthew 25, you know, I have horrible oratory skills, but you know what? I got to do what I have to do, right? Chris, I know you like hearing me read, right?
Yes.
Yes. You ain't paying no attention to me, are you? Boy, I tell you, friends like you, man, you all right with me, man. But friends like you, man. But and the reason, did you get a chance to read Matthew 25, Chris? Remember I said it to you a little earlier. Did you get a chance to even read anything about it?
Yeah, I went over it.
Okay.
Each man had his own.
He had his own. You sure? Okay. Well,
he had 5 talents. One had 2 talents. You know, yeah.
3, 2, and 1. Is that talent? All right. Well, that's cool because for anybody who don't understand what it is, I'm gonna go ahead and read, and I'm reading from the CSB version. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and read verses 14, 15. It says, "For it is like a man about to go on a journey. He called his own servants and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and another 1 talent, depending on each one's ability. Then he went on a journey immediately." So, you know, this kind of lines up into what I'm thinking. I was just thinking aloud. You know, the question was about taking care of business. It was about taking care of business. And we all know, as men, as the leaders of our households, as community, as leaders in our communities, just people, you know, just being men, I believe that we're called to set an example. And taking care of business sometimes means just that. It means being a good example for someone else. It means being a good steward of what God had given you. It means, you see, it doesn't just mean you having your talents. Chris just said to, what was that you said? You said to he has his own. Is that what you said, Chris?
Exactly.
See, because when I look at it, I kind of don't really think that he was talking about talent here. Well, I know he wasn't talking about talent, but he was referring to money. And when you look at the money, you see it really didn't belong to them because it was their master's money. We often hear different things when we hear this passage and we hear people explain this. But this particular parable is a little different, you know, and the important thing is that we get the gist of it, because as we read further into it, again, I stopped at 15, but as we read a little further, it says, because I stopped at where it says, depending on each one's ability. Then it says, then he went on a journey. The man who had received 5 talents went, put them to work, and earned 5 more. Chris, mute your phone for me, man. Remember, when you ain't talking, mute it, because I'm getting an echo. And so it says he got 5, and so he went and made more. And so, and when you think about how we have been blessed in our lives, it's not for our own selves. It's not just for us to have it, but we are to be good stewards. We are to be about, I hear this a lot of times, be about our Father's business. So whose business are we taking care of? as we take care of ourselves, as we take care of our homes, as we take care of life, we ought to be taking care of our Father's business. So as we read on through getting down to verse 17, it says, in the same way, the man with 2 earned 2 more. But the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. So, Chris, I want to go back to what you said. You know what? And this is the funny thing. It says taking care of business. Whose business are we taking care of? You see, by taking care, and it's just me talking, and Chris, feel free to interject if you like, but I believe that in taking care of business, if we take care of business the way God intended, and again, I have to say, how do we know the way God intended us to take care of business? Well, we follow the scriptures, right? So we take care of business the way God would have for us to do it. And so, whose business is it? See, as we find with the men with the talents, 1 had 5, we find that it's not even his money. And for those of us who aren't really sure what a talent is, if we go back in that day and age, in Jesus' time, we find that they used coins, right? They used these coins, and we find that they didn't have a stamp on them. Like we got a quarter now, it says it's worth 25 cents. You get a dollar bill, it says it's worth $1, $10, $5. You know, it has a stamp. Well, back then, they weighed the coins. And so that's how they determined what they were worth, right? So a talent was a measurement used, I believe that it was a weight of about 75 pounds. Okay, so they had these coins, and the talent, we find the talent weighs about 75 pounds. That's a lot of coins to be toting around, you know what I'm saying? So it's about 75 pounds worth of coins that they had. And so that's quite a bit. Now, when you jump into the New Testament, it's a little bit different, okay? The talent was actually equal to a person's wages. Which I believe that in the scriptures or in the Bible, the way it's broken down, you will find that a talent is worth about 6,000 days worth of work, which is about 20 years worth of wages, right? So it was a financial piece, but just to give you an understanding about how much a talent is, because some of us, I know when I first used to read this, I would thought a talent wasn't much of anything. So these men were given a great responsibility. Again, when you get to the New Testament, you find that a talent is 20 years worth of wages. That was 1 talent. So this man who was given the 1 talent, let us not think that it was something that was minimal. His master was trusting him with a lot. And when I think about that, I think of how we live, how God has blessed me, and some of the things I like to equate a talent to in my life is, well, 3 of the most important things in my life. I have kids. And, everything that God has blessed me personally with, my abilities to learn effectively just by reading books, not having to just go and sit into a classroom. But God has really blessed me in that area. And so when I started thinking about things and when I began to get selfish and I started thinking about, well, I don't want to do this because I want to do this, I think about this. And here it is, the question I ask myself, well, who owns this? You see, when we look at the men with the talents, we find that they don't own the talents anyway. They belong to their master, right? And the master basically gave it to them and said, go be fruitful and multiply. Go take this and multiply this. Why can't we do this in our everyday lives? How difficult is this? Who is the master? And God owns everything. Everything. So that paycheck I just got, God owns it. I'm to be a good steward of it. You see, just like in the story that we were just reading about, I'm the servant in that story. The master has given me these talents, and he wants to see just what it is I'm going to do with these talents. You see, in taking care of business, as the servants in the story, I am to go out and do something with these talents. You see, we find that the second servant, he had 2 talents. He went out, and maybe because he thought it was out of his abundance. He wanted to do more. And you know what? The beauty is, just like what God does us, he gives us these talents. He blesses us. And I believe that he wants to see if we're going to do more or if we're going to try to hoard it. And the reason I say that is because God has entrusted us with something that he owns. Now, Chris, just going along with those lines that I was just speaking about, I mean, can you figure how when you think of everything that you have like that, and you surmise this belongs to God, but he's entrusted me with it, how has that, or how would that influence the way you do things in the future if you have this fresh on your mind? I mean, you ain't gotta get
do it the way. The only thing I can say now is do it the way God would have me do it. There's a lot of questions that I have because when you sent that to me, I was in a deep discussion about the Bible, about King James at Razoo, and we discussed the Relentless pursuit. She wants to call in, and we had a really, really deep discussion, and now my mind is kind of, but the question you asked was, do it the way God would have me do
it. And because I believe, and it's funny, man. It's funny because we talk about doing it the way God would have us do it, but I think we do it the way. And again, how do we know this? Lest we study the scriptures, right? But I think part of this, because at some point we know that God owns it, and if we go into it realizing God owns it, at some point we've got to get to a realization of what's going on. Because a lot of times we get these things, and I've been this way. As a young man, I was a little bit selfish, right? So I wanted I wanted to be really, really careful, right? And being careful with what God had entrusted me with caused me to, check this out, restrict any kind of access to what I felt was God's gift for me. Meaning I tried to hoard it for myself, and I didn't want anybody to know about it, right? And I believe that God is telling us we need to expand his territory. And the way we do that, and again, I don't want this to just be about money, but because the story, the parable does bring money in it, God still wants us to expand his territory. What are some of the things that we could be doing with some of the money we have that would help expand God's territory? One of the discussions I get in quite a bit, right, Chris? And this is a real deal here. One of the discussions I get in a lot is about paying tithes. Well, I'm not going to give no preacher or no building my money, and he driving around in a nicer car than I got. Well, okay. Are you being a good steward of what God gave you? Some of us think that I can only give out of my abundance. I got $1 million, so I'll be happy to give you $100,000. Or let's be more practical. Some people say I have $50, so yeah, I can give you $2 or $3. I believe that God is making it possible for us to do more with less. Meaning, let's stop putting, like in my case, stop putting Sedric first and put my people first. You know what I'm saying? Like, like, have you heard the story where the lady says, God talks to her. I'm going to say he comes to her in a dream. He says, hey, tomorrow I'm coming to your house and I want to have dinner with you. Have you heard that story, Chris?
No, I can't say I have.
Okay, so check it out. The story, it goes something like this, and please forgive me if I get a little bit of it wrong, everybody, but I just want to put this into a real practical way of understanding this part. He says to the lady, I'm coming to dinner tomorrow. So the lady, she fixes dinner, cleans up the house, got everything looking real nice, and there was a knock at the door. Boom, boom, boom. She opens the door, and it's a bum. He says, hey, you got something for me to eat? She says, no, I'm having dinner with Jesus tonight. Click, close the door. Another guy comes. Boom, 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 boom. And he says, you got anything to drink? I'm thirsty. Again, I may be butchering this story, but I remember the gist of it. And she says, no, I can't help you. I'm having dinner with Jesus tonight. Third guy comes and knocks on the door. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, you got some money? I need some money, bro. God, can you help me out? She says, no, not today. I'm having dinner with Jesus tonight. Okay, as the story goes, the lady dies. She goes to heaven, and she's face to face with Jesus, and she says, gosh, I drew a blank. But anyway, she's face to face with him, and she said something about, I thought you was coming to dinner tonight, last night or tonight, like that. So she asked about the dinner, and he says, I did. I knocked on the door. I knocked on the door. I was hungry. You didn't give me anything to eat. I was thirsty. You didn't give me anything to drink. I needed some money. You didn't give me any money. She didn't realize. And of course, with the way that story goes, the moral of the story is be careful how you treat people. You never know when you're entertaining an angel, right? But in this case, that story works for me is because she had it, but she didn't share it. And if it belonged to God anyway, if you're taking care of God's business, means that you're taking care of God's people, okay? The Bible says that the poor will always be with us, right? But the poor doesn't have to be the financially poor. It can be the poor in spirit, right? It can be the poor in health. I met a man before who was crippled, and he said, and he had a lot of money. He said, I would give every nickel I got if I just could walk again, So what we have, what Jesus has for us, is not just for us, And then that's kind of the thing. We have to think of ourselves as managers of what Jesus has for us, because I believe that God expects everything that he provides for us. He expects us to use them. He expects us as his servants to do more. Just like the master in the parable, he expected them to do more than just simply hold on to it. How many times do we get something and we just want to hold on to it? We just want to hold on to it. And as we find in the parable about the talents, we find that two of the servants obeyed the master, and one of the servants didn't. See,
so basically what you're saying is we're all children of God. So if my child asks you something, you're helping me. That's basically what the story was about. Those were my children knocking at your door, and you did not help my children.
Yeah. When you think of that story, and you are absolutely right. See, because we're all children of God. None of us has any more privilege than the next. You know what I'm saying? I had this discussion with my son once, right? He says to me, he's frustrated at me, right, about a situation. And he says, but you do everything for my sisters. He called them both by name, and I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I help out your sisters. And then I said to him, but I know what's going on with your sisters. I don't know what's going on with you. And I never hear from you. And some of us do God the same way, don't we? And the thing is, for me with my son, I need to deal with him a little bit differently than I deal with my daughters, because my son, I want him to be a hardworking, courageous young man. And the reason it takes courage, I believe, to be a young man, it takes courage in this day and age to be a good steward. It takes courage in this age, because think about it. The men with the talents, the servants with the talents, you know what? They could have been out trying to make more with these talents that they were given by their masters. But what if they lost all of the money? Their master entrusted them with some, but what if they lost it all? You see what I'm saying? And then would they still have been blessed by the master? Would they still reap the reward from the master if they lost all the money? I believe, and this is what I try to teach my son and all of my kids, I believe that as believers, that what we need to do is we need to be willing to take a wise, and a faithful risk. Meaning we need to not take chances, because chances is just, it's like picking up a rock, throwing it into a crowd. I take a chance on hitting somebody. You might miss, or you might hit somebody. Your chances are pretty good that you'll hit somebody, but a risk is a calculated effort to do something, meaning you sit down. Okay, how do you do that in taking care of God's business? You pray. You sit, you pray, you ask God for direction, and you make a move, right? Now, there are some things you don't have to pray all night and sweat over. You know, if it's helping one of your fellow men, a child of God, you should, you need $1 and I got 100, or I got $2. I shouldn't have to sit and pray and seek God. I'm giving you $1. You know what I'm saying? But there are some things, and when we talk about the talents, again, my reference for the talents, and I'm glad in the parable that I went back, of course, and I looked, and talents, when you got a talent, you got 75 pounds of coins. That's a lot. I mean, that is a lot. So I want us to think of ourselves as well, that everything God has given us, it carries a very heavy responsibility. Now, meaning it shouldn't be taken lightly. I think we ought to be choosing a route that we're not being so selfish. Because, again, we get to the third servant, he dug a hole. He put everything in the ground. Now, when you dig a hole and you put all your stuff in it, right, you basically hide or shield everything you have from everybody. But guess who else can't get to it? Guess who else is not going to be blessed by it? Sometimes God allows us to go out and take risks so that we can be blessed by it, and we can be blessed more abundantly, right? But when we choose that route that's less risky, when we choose a route that's less time-consuming, when we choose a route that requires us to work less in other words, to be lazy, are we being good stewards of what God has us to do? Are we being good stewards? Are we effectively taking care of God's business? Because if God owns it, man, we ought to be wanting to share it with the world. Why? Because it ain't yours anyway. And if I'm the master and I say to you, go out, share this with the world. Notice the word risk, not take a chance. Risks are calculated measures. Do what God would have for you to do. So, and that leads us into, as I read 19, when I got down to verse 19, that leads us into verse 24 through 29, and this is kind of the part where a lot of us we kind of started to get upset, because God gave us something, so we know that God owns it. God requires us to manage it. All the talents that we get, everything that God has blessed us with, He requires us to manage it, right? So that means that we have to be good stewards. If we're going to be good managers, you would not go into a job as a manager at, let's say, a gas station and not pay attention to what's going on. You're gonna know how much gas you're selling. You're gonna know your busy days. You're gonna know your slow days. But God wants us to manage everything that He's given us, meaning just be a good steward over it. Be obedient to the Word of God. I don't believe that God is so. I know that God is not so concerned about you losing your gifts, trying to do the right thing, as opposed to you trying to hide your gifts and they not multiply. You not do anything with them. What good is it if we're the only ones who know God? What good does it do us if nobody sees God in us? If the only time we serve God is when we go home and we get into our closets, our prayer closets, because we love to have prayer closets. We love to go in private and in secret and pray. But what good is it if I can't pray for my brother as I'm walking down the street? What good are the talents that God has given me? So when you manage it, you manage your talents. That means that what you do is you pick and choose what you're going to do. You go out and do what God says. You don't try to stay at home. If you go to church, and I know most churches I've attended, we have a time of our pastors choosing where we just go out and we do what we call evangelism. Evangelism, go out and introduce people to Christ. Invite people to come into your church home and just introduce yourself to the surrounding community. Notice I didn't say your surrounding community, the surrounding community to wherever you are. And that's another way of being good stewards of what God has given you. You're sharing the word with others. So as we go down to verse 19, it says, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. That means that he came and he was just settling up the accounts. I'm going to go ahead and read 20 through 29. It says, the man who had received 5 talents approached, presented 5 more talents, and said, Master, you gave me 5 talents. See, I've earned 5 more talents. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. How many of us want to hear that from Jesus when we see him? How many of us want God to say that to us, right? It says, you were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. See, when we become good managers of the small things, we then get promoted, okay? Or we begin to be entrusted with a little bit more and a little bit more, right? How many of us want that on our jobs, right? So it says that, share your master's joy. Then it says the man with 2 talents also approached. He said, Master, you gave me 2 talents. See, I've earned 2 more talents. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy. How many of us want to share our master's joy? I mean, can you imagine the celebration? I mean, nothing too big, nothing too small. You know, God is that awesome, so I'm going to calm down, though. So now let's go ahead and jump into verse 24. The man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, Master, I know you. You're a harsh man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and went off and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours, evil, lazy servant. If you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gather where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the banker, and I would have received my money back with interest when I return. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. Listen, that is so deep to me. That is so deep to me. And this is where I got stuck in thinking about this lesson. When thinking about taking care of business, I got stuck right here. Because it said that but from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. I don't know about y'all, but I'm not trying to come back empty-handed. I'm not trying to be the one to give account for being lazy. See, the words, and again, I'm reading from the CSB version of the Bible. I'm not trying to be that guy. I don't want to be lazy. Just because something is less work, it doesn't take as much time, and it gives to little to no risk, I'm not that guy. Because think about it. Everything we do today requires a certain amount of work, requires a certain amount
preparation.
time. Go ahead. Say that again, man.
Preparation. Chance favors a prepared mind. So preparation. When you prepare yourself, your chances are greater.
Again, in this context, how are you preparing yourself?
By studying, reading the Word and doing what God wants you to do. Preparing yourself for certain situations, you have to prepare yourself. God doesn't say go on this mission and you're going to be okay. Don't go on a hike without the proper equipment. You get what I'm saying?
Okay. I get what you're saying, but and it all makes sense. The preparation that you're talking about, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it. You said, be prepared. Chance favors the prepared mind. That's what you said, right?
Right.
That's what. Okay. Think about this, because you went there. You went where I wanted to go. Being prepared. What are we preparing for? When we look at this parable, we're talking about the master and the servants. What are we preparing for? You see, we're talking about our character, right? We're talking about not making excuses. We're talking about helping one another. We're talking about managing what God has given us. And managing what God has given us, it covers a multitude of things. But in this context, I want to talk about managing what God has given us, and meaning his joy, a relationship with him, sharing that relationship one to another. We know that God owns everything we have. Let's share with one another. So the preparedness that you talk about and that I want to just touch on just a little bit, being prepared for the return of Christ. When we try to be prepared, when we make up in our minds that we are going to be prepared for Christ, we are going to be prepared for the return of Christ, that we have set our goals so high. That means that, check this out, this is why the third servant is this is why I don't want to be that guy. I can't be safe, because it means that we cannot play safe. It means that we got to get out here and we take the risk. What is the risk, Sedric? What's the risk? What risks are we taking? I'm sharing my heart. I'm sharing my life. I'm sharing my world with God's people. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying go out here and cast your pearls amongst swine. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we ought to be out. We ought to make ourselves available to do God's work. That's the preparation. I love the word that you used. I don't like the word chance, but the risk, chance favors the prepared, and you are absolutely right. The chance that God comes back tomorrow, the chance that God comes back the day after. You know what? It says that man knows not the day or the hour. So all I'm saying is, I like what you said, and I believe that's what God is calling us to do. You know, there's going to be some suffering. There's going to be some financial loss. There's going to be loss of family members. But what we cannot do, because we're talking about doing this for Christ, we're talking about doing this for God. When I have to give account, when I have to be like the servants, and I have to give an account for what God has given me. Sedric, who owns this? When God asks me that question, you own it. You know what I'm saying? When God stands up, when I'm asked that question, what did you do? How did you manage this? You know, I want to be able to give an account, a true account of what it is. Yeah, that's what I want to do. And man, you know, I mean, I see like I struggle. I'm a human being. I'm like everyone else. You know, there are some moral grievances. There are some behavioral grievances that I have, and I tell you what, I've there's been times when, and again, I'm coming from a personal account, but everybody, please just think of yourself when you had some struggles in life, a personal account. Have you ever just looked in the mirror and you realized whatever it was you did was wrong? I have done that. I believe that you have to be mentally tough to make it in this world. You don't always have to be physically tough, but you have to be mentally fit to navigate this world and be alone. And I remember one time trying to teach one of my children that thing, and I was way off base. I was way too hard on her, and it broke my heart later because I won't go into the whole incident, but I will say I wound up hanging up the phone and calling her back because I felt that she wasn't handling something. She was losing control, and I wanted her to be in control of her emotions. I wanted her to be in check because I always seem to be in check. Even when I go buck wild, it's all inside. If you're looking at me from the outside, you never see it. So I had to give an account for that. When I went to pray that day, I had to give an account for that, and it broke my heart. It broke my heart that I handled it that way. Tell you this, I still believe I handled, like if we're using that as a talent, I handled it the wrong way. Basically, I lost all my talent, but guess what? God still blessed me because that thing that I broke, and again, I'm just trying to put it in the best context as I can. But the thing that I broke, that I handled it wrong. So I'm saying I broke it. I mishandled that moment in time with one of my children. But I confessed that sin, right? And I saw where I was wrong. See, being responsible and taking care of business also required me to make that phone call to my own child and say, you know what? I was wrong. I apologize. Look, let me explain to you what I was trying to do. And then I had to do the hardest thing of all. Because I will tell you, apologizing makes you vulnerable. And that's okay. I'll take it any day of the week. I had to explain to that child why I acted the way I did. And I had to expose my own fears in the process because that was the biggest reason for me. I was afraid that something had happened that I couldn't take care of. And I tell you what, I felt so much better. And now I'm able to manage that part of my personality. And so that was a really tough one for me. It was really tough. And I tell you what, I had to give account, but I wasn't condemned. Even my child did not condemn me. My child forgave me, told me they love me. And I imagine had I been there physically, I would have got a hug and a kiss because I love it when my kids give me a hug and a kiss. But I still had to give account for my actions. In this scenario, it was look in the mirror, talk to God. Gosh, I prayed about it. And then it was, now I got to give that human account. I got to call her up or him up. I had to call my child up, and I had to listen. And I would love to tell you that's the only thing I've ever done, but it's not. So they just keep giving me another opportunity, kind of like the guy we serve, right? We get a chance to do it again and get it right. And so I don't know about you guys, but when I think about God and when I think about how God wants me to think about what he's given me and how he's made an increase in my life. And I believe that God expects a return on his investment, and we are God's investments. What do you think about that, Chris? You think I'm way off base? What do you think about that?
I think that has a lot of truth in it. Like you said, God is investing in us. God is entrusting us to do the right thing. And he knows we're going to stumble and fall from time to time. And you said it best. You said we have an opportunity. We get a second. Some get third, fourth, fifth chance. So yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah, because I tell you, I would much rather have influence with God's people than money to hang over God's people. And if I had money, I think I would give most of it away anyhow. I seem to be doing a good job of it these days. It's kind of funny. I wish I left some back, but I'm glad the parable is about money, because before we close out, I definitely want to talk a little bit about that. Look, I have a friend. He's an older gentleman, and he's getting very old. And he says to me, I'm going to spend every dime I got because I know that the people I have left on this earth are not going to appreciate it if I leave it to them. Even if it means I'm going to waste it, I'm not going to leave it to anybody because I work too hard and they're not responsible. I always hear that in the back of my head, and I wonder if God treated me that way, what would I do? Have I been such a good steward of what God has given me that I can afford to do that to anyone else? And I just really want to be a good steward. You know, I want for God to entrust me. You know, I want the privilege. I want the responsibilities because I consider everything that God has given me just that, a privilege. Yeah, we're called to be responsible, but really, let's just be honest. We have to be responsible in our daily walk anyway. I mean, you got to go work. You're responsible for getting up. You're responsible for clothing yourself. You know, it just seems like when it comes to doing God's work, we don't put it in the right context. We don't share it with one another. We don't even help one another the way we should. It's like we're doing everything for each other or we're doing nothing at all. And I don't believe God operates that way. I believe it's just like the servants with the talent. You know, go take a chance. Go risk it all. You risk it all to be prepared for Him. You risk it all to do His will. And mostly, God will bless it. God will bless it. Even in your loss, as I talked about with my daughter, even in your loss, even when you break it, even when you lose it, God has a way of replenishing. God has a way of giving back. And we always say where I'm from, you can't beat God giving. And so that's a wonderful thing. And Chris, if you would, you don't have to if you don't want to, but can you give an account, just of a demonstration of how you are now or have been demonstrating responsibility in your life? It could be anything at all. I mean, you want to share something with us?
What I can say is that these past months, past year, I've been focused on my job and focused on keeping a roof over my head and being responsible enough to let my mom know that I can do this, you know, help. You know what I'm saying? Showing her that I am a man and I'm going to do manly things.
Yeah.
In her words, I'm going to do it best I can the godly way. You know, That's what she wants. You know, do it how God wants you to do it, and everything is going to work itself out.
Man, you are so right. You are so right. Doing it, because you know, God is, oh, man, I don't want to get all excited. You know how I get. I'm going to keep it toned down, but I really, and thinking about these scriptures and looking over this lesson for me, you know, just to be able to look at everything that I own or want to own or used to own or am going to own, being able to put it in perspective that it's just, I'm just being lent this thing. This is on loan to me pretty much, right? You know, and if I'm not giving back, you know, it's kind of like, you know how we always talk about the black community? We say, well, he got rich or he made it out of the hood and he ain't going to come back and he don't come back and he don't give back, right? And whatever it is I do, I try to always reach back and help somebody forward. No matter what it is I'm doing, I try to reach back and help someone forward. And reaching back doesn't mean in a figurative way that I got to turn around and reach back or to pull somebody. No, it simply means I'm going to make a concerted effort. I'm going to make time. I'm going to make myself available. I'm going to put something out knowing that the return on investment that is received doesn't necessarily mean a monetary gain for me. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's, for me, dealing with this lesson, it makes me think about it that way because it's not mine anyway. So let's let God get the benefit. So whatever it takes, let's let God get the benefit. I will, however, and I do know that I've got to manage this thing. God entrusted me with this. And he's saying, okay, I need you to manage this well. You know, the servants with the talents. The first two, they managed theirs very well. They managed their talents very well. As a matter of fact, they both doubled the amount of talents that they had. So they were good managers. And then lastly, when we're called to give account, I want to be the one that gives account. I want to give a good report. I want to be the one to give that bad report. So I Chris, my brother, I want to thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit tonight. I know we got about 3 minutes left, and I want to give shout out to everybody who's out there, but I definitely cannot wait. I can't wait for the next opportunity to help someone, to introduce someone to Christ, to walk with them, whatever it takes. You know, every day God gives us an opportunity, and there are some days, I got to admit, I ain't so holy. I ain't trying to help nobody. But it seems like those are the days I always meet somebody. So I try to wake up every morning to be optimistic. I'm like, okay, God, I know you're going to send somebody. Let me be prepared. Like you're saying, Chris, chance favors the prepared. I like that. Just don't like the word chance much. But it's been a wonderful night. I do want to let everybody know that, bam, I'm getting my social media stuff together. I've enlisted the assistance of a social media professional, and this particular professional, she's planning to bring the whole Instagram alive for me. So she's going to be managing the Instagram account. The Facebook page is Minister Sedric. You can look up, Relentless Pursuit. You can look it up on Facebook. You'll see a little something we're going to start putting out there. And then also our Instagram, you can just look up Minister Sedric, and it's spelled out MINISTER SEDRIC. You know, so we're going to start putting some things out. We're going to try to have fun. We're going to try to grow everything up, because I tell you what, I've got some exciting guests coming up for the new year, and I wish I could get them all on now, but I can't. I had to kind of schedule them in, or they schedule me in. Let me say it like that. So I got some really good guests coming up. I really want to start talking about, because the new year coming, I know everybody's going to be making all these New Year's resolutions, but I want to talk about a good friend of mine. I hope I can get him on, because I bought a book that he has for sale. I've checked out his DVDs, but, you know, I want us to learn how to eat without killing ourselves, right? He calls it genocide by diet. I tell y'all what, my eyes were opened, and I saw him a number of weeks ago in St. Louis, and I tell you what, I was already on a kick where I wasn't eating a lot of carbs, but I have implemented some of the things that he wanted me to implement, and I'm continuing to drop weight, and it's a good dropping of the weight. It's just fat falling off, you know, because I hate to tell people, but I had a little bit of fat around my middle. I used to say I was always toting a 2-year kid around, but I done lost that little 2-year-old. It's more like a 6-month-old now. So as we sign off for the night, again, just continue to check us out. And if you got an email you want to drop out, still email me at ministercedric@outlook.com. And just look for us. We're going to be out in the community here in Louisville, just kind of doing some things differently this month. And next month, January, promises to be really big for us. So keep tuning in to the show. Know that we love you. Keep the questions coming. If there's anything you want to talk about, anything that I need to elaborate on, please feel free to do that. So with that said, Sister Kim, thank you so much. Thanks, Chris, for hanging out with me, man, okay? I'll see you next week on Relentless Pursuit. Find something you love, pursue it, and that'll be your relentless pursuit. I appreciate everybody. Have a good night. Enjoy your weekend.
About the trees and light, but it's about joy. Friends and family all gathered together, but I just wanna know, do they really know that tis the season? You're the reason why you were born, then gave your life, the ultimate sacrifice. So many reasons tell you why, wrote a song to tell you why, believe you are the reason, yeah. Some call you Emmanuel, the Prince of Peace, but I call him my Savior. He died for you and me. Mary's baby, born in a manger, delivered the world from all harm and danger. The world was lost till you came along. You set the captives free, 'cause you're the newborn king. Tears of season, you're the reason why, 'cause you were born and gave your life, the ultimate sacrifice. So many reasons I could tell you why, wrote a song to tell you why, believe you are the reason, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. All right, yeah. I wanna say, tis the season, you're the reason why, 'cause you were born and gave your life, the ultimate sacrifice. So many